All right, we've got three people that would like to testify on this. If Elizabeth Stroker, Colonel Perry, and Ben Voitis would come down, we'll go out of session. And if you'll just make sure your little red microphone light's on and introduce yourself to the committee and the members and have at it. It's 3 minutes, by the way.
Elizabeth Stroker, Legislative Director for the Department of Safety, and wanted to come here. I'm going to kind of go through our legal issues as well as our departmental issues with this piece of legislation, and Colonel Perry will be here for any law enforcement or safety-specific questions as well. First up, this bill does completely delete the current constitutional carry law, which means that it is true constitutional carry, for lack of a better phrase, but it would also delete the restrictions that this body put into place dealing with DUI offenders, stalking offenders, anyone who is considered mentally defective by a court, as well as any federal prohibitions, which are all being deleted since all of the constitutional carry is being deleted. So that's one of the concerns we have, is those people would then still be allowed to carry as that is being deleted from the code. Second up is the general change from firearms to handguns throughout the entire code. First, our current permits say handguns, as you all know, whether it be concealed or enhanced. So does that mean we then have to go back and reissue or change? We're going to have to change the wording on all of those permits. You're going to have permits out there that say enhanced, concealed, and now firearms. That's probably going to cause some confusion throughout the state as well as in other states. So just a thing that we wanted to bring up. Additionally, it is deleting the code where the defense to carry in your vehicle is a defense to carrying with the intent to go armed. But in doing that, it takes away an employer's ability from preventing an employee from carrying in an employer's vehicle. There are a lot of state employees as well as private employees who would probably like to keep that right, specifically whenever it is their vehicle that they are leasing or letting their employee borrow. Lastly, I'll touch on the fact that just simply changing everything in the code from handgun to firearm is a safety concern from the Department of Safety, which is the main reason why we are opposed to the bill, is we prefer that it stay handgun. And changing it down to 18, as Chairman Todd said, is actually something we would be comfortable with. As one of the previous bills we've seen was drafted, that is something we are currently working on through pending litigation. So if it were just that piece, changing it down to 18 for the enhanced, the concealed, and the constitutional carry, that's something the department would be okay with. But all of these other changes are what's bringing in all of our concerns.
Thank you. Colonel, do you have anything?
Thanks, Chairman. Colonel Matt Perry. I'll just add a few, the safety concerns for law enforcement. So the idea of someone being able to carry any kind of rifle or high capacity, rifles is a concern for law enforcement. Just our interactions with people, how do we address them? They walk in this building, we're charged with protecting it. We can't prevent them from coming in. And how does law enforcement interact with people that are just openly carrying weapons?
They can't ask if they can carry.
Yeah, and because of constitutional carry, we can't ask them who they are, what they're doing, why they have it. We just have to let it happen, and it makes us extremely reactionary. And in most cases, if they are an ill-intended, because we're not talking about the honest, hardworking, good people of Tennessee carrying weapons. We're talking about the bad persons, the criminal element that have it. We will only be able to react to, in most cases, we won't have firepower that matches their own. I'll stop talking.
Thank you. Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a few questions. What are the federal prohibitions that you mentioned that this bill will run counter to?
Ms. Stroker.
So currently under 1307G, that's the constitutional carry law, it says you can carry if you are 21 or 18 in certain situations unless, and there's about 4 or 5 things that you cannot constitutionally carry with, and one of those subdivisions is you are not prohibited under federal law. That could be covered elsewhere as far as purchasing, but with that being specifically removed, as well as those others with stalking, DUI, adjudicated mental defective, since all of those exceptions to being allowed to constitutionally carry are being removed, then you would assume that they would then be allowed to carry in those situations now.
Representative Parkinson?
Thank you so much.
I believe, just 1 second, I believe Ms. Ansonia may have a clarification, if she may interject, and I'll come right back to you.
Elizabeth Ansonia, Legal Services. So Section 3917-1307H is not deleted by the amendment, and that is the subsection that contains the prohibition on carrying if you have been convicted of stalking, a certain number of DUIs, adjudicated as a mental defective, or otherwise prohibited under federal law. So that's still in the code.
Very good. Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With changing of the, and I got a few questions, Mr. Chair, if you're okay with it. With changing of the permits, is there a fiscal note that came with that, with this bill?
Ms. Stroker, you're recognized.
Yeah, I believe there is a fiscal note on it. I don't have it pulled up. I could definitely pull it up, but I'm not sure if they took that into account of it. But it was just something that we came up with. And thank you, Elizabeth, for correcting me. I am very easily wrong, so I appreciate that. And I admit when I'm wrong, so thank you there. But I can pull up the fiscal note, or if someone on the committee has it, be happy to.
Representative Parkinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with the age change, if my memory serves me correct, which my memory doesn't serve me correct very often, you guys were opposed to going to 18 years old, if I'm not mistaken, last year, year before that. What happened to change your mind this year?
Ms. Stroker?
There was a pending lawsuit that's been before the courts for the past couple years dealing with this subject matter, and the decision was made a few months ago that we would not be contesting that lawsuit, and we are under a pending current agreed order to lower that down or stop enforcing that age restriction. So due to the litigation and the pending order that's coming, that's why we are now moving to being comfortable with that based on what Chairman Todd stated earlier.
Representative Parkinson, any follow-up?
Yes, just the last question. Okay. Under this legislation, if it becomes law, will a person be able to walk into the governor's office with an AK-47?
Ms. Stroker?
I'll let Colonel correct me if I'm wrong, but it is, you already cannot carry into the Capitol itself, so posting would still apply, so you would not be able to carry in places that are posted. No firearms. So no.
Representative Parkinson?
Thank you. And just to follow up on that, and so if it's posted, how does that affect liability regarding with this legislation?
Okay.
That may be a better question for the sponsor. We don't necessarily deal with liability as much.
I'll hold that till we get back on the bill.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
Sounds good. Who else we have on the list? Anybody else on the list for Colonel Perry or Ms. Stroker? No. Representative Grills, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel, you said something about, you used the term the average person, like the average person, that's not someone you feared. So what's the difference between the average person and someone who is not average?
Colonel?
Thank you, Representative. Colonel Matt Perry. I don't know the answer. The person who has bad intentions, the person who is a criminal, we don't know. We have no ability to, if someone is a convicted felon, that they could walk in the building carrying a rifle, and we can't, if we don't know they're a convicted felon, we don't walk around knowing most convicted felons. So that's really what I'm talking about. Most people are not going to do not have intentions or will not go and harm people, but it's those worst case scenarios that we're worried about.
She said Chairman Grills. I apologize.
Doesn't matter. Thank you, Chairman. Would you agree, though, that it would be beneficial for an individual to be able to defend themselves in case someone who was not the average person were to show up in a place of just a common ground? So them and their family aren't put at the mercy of a could-be perpetrator.
Colonel Perry?
Yes, sir. I believe someone should be able to, but not necessarily with rifles and higher capacity weapons, smaller handguns as they are now.
Chairman Grills?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, a couple of years ago, we had the constitutional carry, which I think fantastic. I was a great fan of it. There were different weapons that were described in there that were called pistols. And the functionality of those weapons are the same as some of these long guns. Nothing changes. The magazine doesn't change. The functionality of it doesn't change. But yet, there are, apparently, you guys don't feel that the average person should be able to handle those weapons without, I don't know what it is y'all would like, but what's changed there?
Stroker,
I don't fully understand the question.
Okay.
so-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An AR-15 is a gun that seems to get the bad rap. They're this long. They can be shot in different capacities. You can also get an AR-15 pistol, which can be carried right now constitutionally without a permit. They're the same gun, functionality. What's the difference then? Why would you say that it's okay to carry this one without a permit, but we don't want the rest of the Tennesseans to be able to carry the long gun?
Ms. Stroker.
Yeah, I don't think someone should be able to carry either one. That's,
Representative Grills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But we have established over and over again through Supreme Court cases that the individual has a right to keep and bear arms for their protection. And it's our job as legislators, in my opinion, to make sure that every Tennessean's constitutional rights are protected. And I took an oath to make sure that I did that. And I feel like voting for and pushing this legislation is something that I have to do from a constitutional perspective, because I owe 69,806 people back home that I intend to defend their right to keep and bear arms. Thank you.
Safety, you're recognized.
I would say that, yes, while it is a constitutional right, there is also plenty of case law, as well as the recent Supreme Court decision that says it still can be regulated.
Representative Grills, any follow-up? All right, any other questions for Chairman Todd? And Representative Beck?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for safety, so according to
Representative Beck, is this for safety or do I need to go back?
Safety.
Okay, carry on.
in reading the bill, this would allow any individual to carry an AK-47 out front of this building, up and down Broadway. Am I reading that correctly?
Safety, you're recognized.
Yes, sir.
Representative Beck?
And since there's no permitting, that y'all would have to, if you had an officer who wanted to question one of these people carrying a automatic rifle, you would have to go up to those, your officers would have to approach those people, and you'd have to have probable cause to approach those people. Is that correct?
Safety, you're recognized.
I think we'd at least have to have reasonable suspicion, but I don't believe carrying the weapon alone would be reasonable suspicion under this law and constitutional carry.
Representative Beck?
Typically, if one of your officers walks up to the guy outside this building carrying the AK-15, AR-15,
Safety, you're recognized.
your officer would be carrying a gun that is your officer would more than likely be outgunned, correctly?
Safety, you're recognized.
Yes, sir.
Any follow-up, Representative Beck?
Thank you.
All right, Chairman Todd, do you have anything for safety, or you're recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the first question I would have for you, you're here today, both of you here, to testify on behalf of whom today? Who do you represent?
Safety, you're recognized.
The governor's office and the Department of Safety.
Okay, so you're not
Chairman
here on your
Todd.
personal capacity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So can you show me in statute or the Constitution of the state of Tennessee where you as an administrative representative have the statutory or constitutional authority to come into this committee room in the legislature and oppose, which are your words, a bill that before this legislature?
Safety, you're recognized.
We have the permission from the governor's office to come in and speak for the governor and his administrative agencies.
Chairman Todd.
That wasn't the question. Statutory or constitutional authority. You're a lawyer.
I am a lawyer, but I do not know every single law that is on the books in Tennessee.
Chairman Todd.
And I would assert that you have no constitutional or statutory authority to come into this legislature as an administration representative to oppose bills.
Safety recognized.
I would direct that question to the governor's office and their legal counsel.
Chairman Todd.
They're sitting in front of me. You just said you represent the governor, so I assume you can speak for him.
Safety.
There's nothing I can say in this situation.
I would have to agree. You mentioned, if I might, Mr. Chairman,
Chairman Todd, you're recognized.
you mentioned the difficulties that this is going to present with the different permits that you have. We already have difficulties with permits. People have enhanced carry permits that don't say enhanced. Is that correct?
Safety recognized.
Yes, that is correct, and that was a problem that we brought up back then when the bill was passed as well.
Chairman Todd.
So we already have difficulties with the public understanding what they have in their pocket, what's available to them, where they can carry, what's illegal, what's legal, very complicated code. And this helps to clarify that it's no longer an offense. You have a civil right to keep and bear arms. And it's not just pistols, Colonel. It's arms. As you well know, you took the same oath I did. So we all know what we're talking about here. And it may make people uncomfortable that somebody might see something that is different than what you're wearing, but it's still an arm. And our constitutional rights, our civil rights are that we have the ability and the right to keep and bear arms. And that's what this bill is about. And it's really appalling to me to have you guys come in here and represent the governor of this great state in the legislature opposing legislation. It really is beyond the pale.
Well, I think it's important to note that they're just doing what they're told to do and trying to keep us safe, and safety recognized.
Nothing I can add there. Like you said, we are doing our jobs and here saying our piece and how it would impact our department in the state. So,
Any other questions for safety? And Leader Lameth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chairman, with all due respect, I was monitoring from the back room. Thank you all for your testimony today. Thank you for keeping us safe in this state. And I have said this in committee before publicly, and I will say it again. These folks are here doing their job. They're doing what they have been asked to come here to do. And they are giving testimony for us to consider in whatever way we choose. And then it's our vote. But if we have a specific issue with the message, we are welcome to take that up with the commissioner, who has 40-plus years of law enforcement experience that these folks are here to represent, or with the governor of the great state of Tennessee. We can absolutely have those questions. I left the governor's office just earlier today, and I can assure you these individuals do speak for him to a certain point. They can't tell us every single thing that he is thinking at any moment, but they have a process. And I just wanted to thank you publicly, both of y'all, for the job you do. We agree, we disagree sometimes, but I respect the job that you do. Thank you.
For the department or on the bill?
Well, it's related to the conversation and Leader Lambert's comments, and I certainly respect his comments and understand that. But I did just that. I have discussed this with the governor's office and was assured just yesterday that this department would not come in here and oppose or support a bill. They would strictly say how it affects their department. And that's not what has taken place here. So I have done that, sir, and I appreciate that comment.